All right, I am in.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Smack Talk Live. I am the coach along with Lone Wolf, and for the first time in a long time, I don't
We
get
have music again.
out of the blue.
Yep.
And I took all that stuff off here, so let me try to fix this here.
Hey, everybody just kind of wanted to rock out at the very beginning, so it's all right.
So, all right. So, for the first time in a long time, we have sports news to talk about, even though it's not scores or highlights or anything like that.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that has happened in the last week, and
Yes.
it really ties in with everything going on, you know, in the country, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But, um, you know, sports really have an impact on society and vice versa.
Right.
And we were talking, you know, texting earlier today about some of the stuff going on.
Right.
Um, and we'll get into you know the NFL and Colin Kaepernick and that stuff. I think at the end,
Yeah.
I want to start out by talking about Rob Manfred in Major
Okay.
League Baseball because I just read another article that he's guaranteeing a season. He's
Oh.
guaranteeing it. Guaranteeing that.
Why do people say that? Why do people do that kind of stuff? I guarantee. You're guaranteeing it. Sure.
So, so the article I read was that they still don't have an agreement with the players. The
Right.
players union vice president, I believe, is urging them to uh, make an agreement with the owners and the league to play. They still haven't, and it doesn't. From what I'm reading, it doesn't sound like they're really willing to be like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. And
Right.
now Rob Manfred came out and said, we're having a season. It's going to be done by the end of September,
Uh
and it may only be 42 regular season games.
huh. Oh, this is awesome.
Now,
And
now
this is the thing, right? So the last counter proposal that I read from the Players Association back to baseball, back to the owners and the league, what have you, was 89 regular season games. And I think it was, 16 teams in the postseason or something like that. So now baseball is coming back, the league, and just decreeing, no, we should have a 42 game season.
well, that's what if they don't come to an agreement with the players. I
That's
guess
just what they're going to do.
Rob Manfred has the power to say this is what we're doing.
Sure. Yep.
Um, you know, we've said it for like the past 3 weeks.
Right.
Major League Baseball is in trouble.
Yes. Yeah, it
They
is.
are in
Yeah.
major trouble here.
Right.
They can't afford this kind of stuff
No.
because
No, not at all.
this just isn't going to impact this season.
Right.
This is going to linger now. You've now developed a rift between the players
Right.
and the owners in the league.
Yep.
So anytime there needs to be cooperation between those groups, there's not going to be.
Right. There's already the distrust. You've got that sewn into this now. And maybe some of this stuff was there anyway, but you had a really successful World Series, and then you come into this season, or this non-season, I should say, and this is what happens. So now all these things, all these arguments that maybe were simmering, come back to the forefront, and take center stage, and it's creating this huge rift. So yeah, this is very bad for baseball, as we've been saying, and it's going to have a lasting impact on revenue, teams surviving, baseball surviving potentially. So
Right. I don't see how um how the Major League Baseball survives if they don't come to an agreement. Now they did just have the
yeah,
draft.
right.
They're doing their draft as we speak.
Yes,
Well,
they
I'm
are.
sorry,
Yep,
I'm not getting into the Major League Draft because that thing is like a zillion rounds,
it's an
and
eternity. Yeah,
they draft high school players and this and that. And it's you see these high school kids get drafted, and
yeah,
they most of them don't even make it to the major leagues and this and that.
right. I mean, they're
So
just playing, double, triple A, whatever. Yeah, yeah,
so I'm not gonna don't want really want to get into that, but I just I don't get where Manfred's coming from. If you don't have an agreement, if you are like not on the verge
right.
of getting your league started, shut your mouth.
Yeah, don't even say that. Right. Don't even. Yeah,
After the debacle, with the Tide All Star game and all that with Seelig,
right.
he retires. They bring in Manfred, and I think for the last couple of years, those relationships between the owners and the players was getting better. We've
Mm-hmm.
just thrown
Right.
all that out the window here.
Yeah, it's completely gone at this point. I agree.
Now, again, we've said it on here. We don't feel bad
Mm-hmm.
for the players if they have to take a reduced salary.
No,
We don't feel bad for them
no.
because if we, that we're talking, if even if they play only 82 games, which I think is just mathematically impossible now if they want to be done at the end of September,
Right.
even if they would play 82 games, that'd be like us instead of working 40 hours a week, working 20 hours a week, but expecting to get paid for 40.
The full amount. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep.
not going to
Right.
happen. And I just
Well,
don't
that
think.
was yeah, that was their last counter proposal. I mean, the Players Association said we'll play 89 games and we'll get our full prorated salary over the 89 games. Now, they said prorated, but still, they're getting paid not less. Like I think the league had said we'd pay 75% of your prorated salary contingent on the playoffs being completed. But even then, I mean, it's like you can't expect that you're going to get that full amount. It I
Right.
don't know. Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You're
And
not going to get your
89 games,
phone.
how are you playing 89 games? I mean, they say they're going to end in October. You're playing 89 games starting in July.
Oh, it's mathematically impossible. You have to play every day.
Yeah.
You have to play every day. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right.
I don't know. I don't see how Major League Baseball's pulling this off. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Um, I just
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't know. Yeah. Yep.
I really don't know what to say anymore about it.
Right. Right.
Because they're just making a mockery. This should have been as soon as they delayed opening day. They should have been all right. Players, get us your player reps. Union, get your staff. Owners, we don't want all the owners right now. You select like a couple of owners, and we're all going to get on a Zoom call, and we're going to start hammering this out now. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like they just waited until like, oh, okay, I guess we should start talking about this stuff now.
Right.
Because until just like 2-3 weeks ago, we didn't hear anything from Major League Baseball and what their plan was.
Right. Yep.
At least the other leagues, they would say, hey, this is what we're working on. They didn't come out and say, hey, we're doing this. They're like, we're working
Mm-hmm.
on this. Major League Baseball's like, nope, boom, we are having a season.
Right.
I just
And we're not the only ones, saying this. Now we've been saying it for a couple weeks, but I was just looking at an article by Buster Olney on ESPN that came out at the very end of May, which, I think for us, we were talking about it the week before, but he was saying essentially the same thing that we've been saying that whole time, too. It's not just the 2020 season at stake, but the future of baseball itself, And so, I mean, we're not the only ones saying this. You can see it because of what's happening, because of the rift that's being caused here and why. So, I mean, yeah, and he even said the same thing. He's like, cooler heads would prevail, or will they?
Oh,
I mean, it seems like maybe it should be the logical thing, but they are not acting rationally on either side. You're right. I mean, the commissioner comes out and says, "This is just what we're going to do." After they've made the league has made two proposals to the players, and they've countered it twice. And this last counter was on June 9th, and now a couple days later, he's like, "Well, nope, too bad. This is what we're going to do." This is a complete failure in negotiations, and I guess I would say this. We talk about sports, and we're fans of sports. So for anybody who's like a really diehard baseball fan, I feel bad for them because this is ruining your sport, your pastime, the thing you love the most about sports. And you could be staring at a completely changed landscape for it, or possibly none, depending on what happens. So,
right. That's the thing. It's like the I think the owners are, at the point that they're looking at it as, hey, we want to have a season, but financially, we can't have fans in the stands.
right.
At least that's what they're saying. I think they could do it. I just don't think the owners want to try to work it out because they just want money. That's where the greedy
Yeah.
owners come in. But if you're going to play without fans, the players need to make concessions. They need to understand that. Again, we said this last week. The owners just aren't sitting there on millions of dollars underneath their mattress and
Right,
handing the
right.
money out. They're the players get paid from revenue that the team makes from fans in the stands, buying things at the stadium, ticket sales, everything.
Right. All of that. Yeah.
And I just think the players just are not under. I think they understand that. I don't think they want to hear it though. They don't want to listen to it.
Right. No.
So
No. And I think, you look at the greed involved, and that's the real part of the problem. And I'm not saying every single person involved is that way, but there's enough of it, obviously, that they look at it, and they don't want to give up what they have to be able to play this sport. I mean, you can't give an inch, just a little. Both sides need to give a little bit to get where they need to be to have a season. And right now they're trending towards not having a season.
yeah, and we even said it. The way that the league wants to set it up is that they want to have a quote unquote spring training.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to start that no later than the first full week in July.
Right.
And that's only if you're playing only 42 games because if you think, clubs are going to want 2-3 weeks, well, now you're at the end of July. You have August, and then you have to do playoffs in September. I just don't see how they can do it. You're going to have to go with basically saying, you know what, we'll give you like 5 days to just get your guys ready to just get some workout in, but we got to start playing games. We aren't going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do a quote unquote spring training because we don't have the time anymore. Now
Right.
the reason for that September date is that they don't want to be impacted by a possible second wave of the COVID. You know
Right.
what? At that point, you're probably going to have 2 to 4 teams playing anyways.
Correct. I
So
mean, the thing is, if you're bringing a league back, you have to institute protocols to deal with this as
Right.
if you were going to have it or somebody could have it or whatever anyway. I mean, you got to put all that in place. So just if you have those protocols in place, then you should be all set. Can you prevent it 100%? No. Is there a vaccine for it? No. So you can't prevent it 100%. It's just not possible. Just put your protocols into place, be as safe as you possibly can. That's what they
Right.
should be doing. I mean, they're talking about this stuff, but the real fight about it is just the money fight,
Right.
back and forth, back and forth. Yeah,
And and we've talked about this before. It doesn't matter if you start playing now, you start playing in 6 months.
right.
Until there's a vaccine, you bring your games back. Even if you limit or have no fans, there's going to
Yeah.
be a spike because you're bringing people together. There's going to be an
Mm-hmm.
increase in positive tests. Now, it
Right.
doesn't mean that the death rate's going to go through the roof.
Right. Right.
With everything going on outside of COVID, it'll be interesting in 3-4 weeks to see what the case numbers look like now with all
Sure.
these
Yeah,
protests
definitely.
and stuff going on.
Right.
You
Which a
know,
lot of these people are not wearing masks and they're all
right?
smashed all together with each other. And yeah.
And I have a positive spin on all that for sports at the end that I want to touch on.
Okay.
But and you're like probably thinking positive. How's it gonna be? Trust me, you'll understand
I
when we get to the end.
I believe you. I mean, we've known each other long enough. When you say that, I know you got something. So
Now it might be totally off
kind of off
base
the
and
wall. Sure.
inaccurate,
Yeah.
but it's a thought
That's okay.
process.
That's
So
okay.
so that's Major League Baseball in a nutshell right
Yes.
now. A
Yes.
total disaster.
Disaster. Yes.
I mean,
Um
what's more
yeah,
of a
it's about right.
you look at it like this? What's more of a disaster, Major League Baseball or Minneapolis right now? It's a
Right.
toss up.
It's a toss up.
It's an absolute toss up. Or Seattle right now with all that stuff going on.
Right.
But it's all toss up because it's
Yeah.
and for some reason that Major League Baseball can't get their crap together. They
No,
just
they
they
just
just
can't.
they, and it
And all
always
the other
seems
and all these other sports have been doing that, and have been getting things um, together and have been figuring it out. I mean, golf is back officially. Golf is
right.
back.
Yep.
They're out there right now. They're
Yep.
playing a tournament in Fort Worth, Texas. They're
Yep.
back.
Exactly.
MMA. We've talked about that a little bit before with fighting and with MMA and wrestling and some of the other sports like that. MMA is out there. They're having an event in another country, but they have other events that are going on. They've got one in Vegas on June 13th that's going on. Other places have the other sports have already started to figure this thing out. And the
Yeah.
other major sports like the NBA and the NFL, we've talked about them. They have been advancing plans on how to get this done. It's been pretty quiet in terms of the fights. Maybe a little bit more in the NBA in terms of the back and forth between the players and the league, but not even close. None of these other sports even close to baseball in terms of how things are going. Either they're back or they're discussing a plan to come back.
Right. Exactly. And that leads us to the NBA.
Yep.
Because they are we talked about their plan last week. It seems like that's the way they're going to go. A couple days ago, Adrian Wojciechowski, I believe,
Wojciechowski. Yep.
um, posted an article about there are some players that are concerned about
Yep.
restarting the season.
Restarting. Yep. Yep.
Okay. And there's some they don't come out and say who. The one article I read, Carmelo Anthony is one of them. But they really don't say
Yeah.
who. But they had a conference call or conference calls where players could come in and just talk to the Players Association and the league and things like that, and probably ask them questions and things like that. And here's the difference between again and the NBA and Major League Baseball. The NBA basically has said the Milwaukee Bucks, say the Milwaukee Bucks, and I don't think this would happen. Giannis decides,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not playing. I'm done. I'm
Right.
not doing this because I'm too concerned. The NBA is like, fine, that's fine. We're not going to penalize you for it,
Mm-hmm.
and we're actually going
Right.
to allow that team to find a replacement player and put them on their roster
For that
to
person.
replace that
Yep.
person.
Yep.
So you just see the huge difference
Right.
in how leagues are handling this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now I can understand, the NBA's hesitance, some players to be
Sure.
hesitant about returning to play. And I read this article. It was actually put out by the Wisconsin Children's Hospital about
Okay.
the different sports. And I kind of chuckled because
Mm-hmm.
they put, obviously like football, wrestling as the highest risk sports of
Sure.
transmitting
Yeah. You got a lot
COVID
of
to each other.
contact. You're in close contact. Right.
But they put basketball lower. And I was like, wait a second here. There's a lot more body
Yeah.
contact in basketball than even football. They're
I
looking at
agree.
football as that it is a collision sport. But here's the
Right.
thing. Not everybody on that
It's
field is touching the football every play.
no. And
You
it's not even I would say there's like you just said there's probably more body contact in basketball than there is in football. If I hit you, yeah, okay, maybe I tackle you, but maybe I just hit you and that's it. And what is that? 2 seconds of contact? Whereas if I'm posting up underneath the basket, I'm in close proximity to you for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, every
and
time up and down the court,
and your contact though is body to body. You
body
have
to
a
body, and you're in
thin
that person's
material.
breathing space. Yep.
In football, you have protective equipment
Yeah.
that limits how you actually come into contact with somebody. Now, I'm
Well, and
not
even
saying
more so, you're in that person's breathing space for a longer period of time. And that's really where that's where this is getting transmitted for the most part. Yes,
right.
contact on something, but you're breathing no filter, no nothing. You're breathing right at that person, and they're sucking it right in. If there's any virus in the water droplets or the mucus or anything like that that you're spewing out, they're sucking it right in. And basketball is a long game, and you're
Yeah.
doing that constantly. I don't know. To me, it's a dangerous. It's more dangerous than football
And that's the thing. It's
from that
like
standpoint.
I just look at the amount of time you actually have physical contact with your
Right.
opponent. It's more in
Yep.
basketball.
It is. I agree.
In
Yep.
football, play goes to 3 to 4 seconds, and you usually have about 100 plays in a game.
Yeah.
That's 400 seconds.
Right.
It's not a lot of time, really.
No.
And you're outdoors, where they say it's
Right.
harder to transmit if you're
Right.
outside.
Exactly. As opposed
In
to
basketball,
basketball, which
you're
is in a
inside.
confined inside space. Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I just it's
Right.
kind of like the concussion thing. Everybody says, "Oh, football has all these concussions and all these major
Right.
injuries." Actually, soccer is proven to have more of a risk for major injuries and concussions
Correct.
because of the
Yep.
violent contact without personal, protective gear.
With less stuff, with less pads, less. Yeah. Yep.
So it, people look at football and they're like, "Oh, it's so violent. It must be. We have to put it at the most dangerous level of everything."
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it. But anyways, back to the NBA. So I get where the players are coming from, but again, the NBA has a plan in place already. If those players decide they don't want to play, yeah. So it's like,
Hmm.
why?
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Why can't other sports come up with something like this? Especially Major League Baseball. I mean, holy cow! You Never have contact with an opponent. If you think
Right.
about it, baseball, I'm taking somebody
Right.
with my glove.
I mean, the highest chance you have of running into somebody in baseball is if they tag you out at the base with their glove, you might run into them, or if you slide into a base, you might touch somebody.
I'll tell you right now,
I mean,
you
but that's about
you,
it.
you have more probability of coming in contact with your own teammate from colliding, trying to catch a pop up.
Sure, right.
So it's just
The
amazing. It's
chance
just
of
amazing
you
to me.
being close to somebody in baseball are way less than any other of those sports.
Exactly.
Way less than basketball, football. Way, 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 way less. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, um, and from what I understand, the NBA is still, their timeline is still progressing.
Yep.
Um, so the big thing that came out since last week's show was this article about there are players that are concerned about
Right.
restarting the season. But again, we've said this.
Yeah.
And it just goes right back to those people that don't want to go out into the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then don't.
Yeah.
We're not going to judge you for being
Right.
concerned and not wanting to go do this.
Right. I mean, I think there are some people who are, but most people I think
Well,
are reasonable enough to say that we're not going to.
yeah, most people won't, won't judge people. Now,
Right.
the other thing with the NBA too, they kind of talked about the structure, and this thing's going to move fast once they get going.
It
Because
is. Once they start popping on it, yes.
it said 14 of the 22 teams that will restart are going to be eliminated in 53 days. That's
Right.
fast.
It is
That
fast. It's
is
going to be
fast.
fast.
So
But
you're saying,
we talked about this though too, right? I mean, think about the ratings for this. That's
oh,
quick. This
it's
is
going
going
to
to
go
be
through the
this is going to
ratings
be
are
on
going to,
fire.
yeah, the ratings are going to be great for the
Yeah.
NBA
Yeah.
on this. You know, that, it basically takes you to league semifinals,
Mhm.
or if they just do one big bracket, the quarterfinals.
Right.
And then I think they said in like 75 days it'd be down to finals. Four teams after 67 days. So
Yeah.
they're really, and we talked about this last week, that they needed to have a quicker pace with games. You can't sit there and say, all right, this series is done. Well, we didn't schedule you to start for 5 more days. We're going to let you sit for 5 days.
Yeah, so you're just
It
sitting there, right?
They're keeping this thing going.
Yeah.
And I think what they're going to find out is, and this is where I think, we can say whatever we want about the COVID.
Right.
What I think this is going to do for like a league like the NBA, they're going to be like, wow, we actually have better ratings. Fans are happier, and we
Right.
went at a faster pace.
Right. I think you're right. I was just gonna say, and I was thinking this, it may change how basketball does things in the future. If in a
Right.
non-COVID situation, they may
Mm-hmm.
change the way they have their setup. I agree. Yep. Yep.
Absolutely. And that'd be, I think, you know, NBA is one of those leagues that they're always looking at how do we improve things.
Yeah.
Again, they're on a totally different spectrum than Major League Baseball. The
This is like
NBA,
night and day. Night
yeah,
and day.
I think they're going to look at this and be like, okay, wasn't the perfect way to end our season. It was out of our control. We got
Right.
through it, but holy cow, this stuff worked.
Yeah.
This stuff worked. We could implement some of this stuff into our regular types of seasons in the future
Right.
and
Well, and I
make
think
our
that's one of the
product
biggest
better.
complaints about basketball is, you get to a certain point in the season and guys aren't playing. You go to games and they're sitting, and you get to the playoffs and it seems like it takes forever. Um, it's still exciting, with the playoffs, but it feels like a certain part of the season and the postseason kind of drags on a little bit. So with this, maybe, yeah, if it does make a faster pace, then yeah, they take that and they move that forward into the next year, hopefully in a non-COVID situation, and you can say, "Oh man, look at this is great." I agree. I think they are looking to make their product better. Whereas baseball, they just feel like they're stuck in a rut, and they
I,
can't figure it out,
I don't
or
even know if they're.
in
I
a
don't even know if
canyon. I don't know, maybe more than a
there's.
rut.
I think they're just everybody's just digging their heels in and be like, no, this is what we want. Then the other side's this is what we want, and they aren't willing
Yeah.
to compromise and come up with a solid plan. Um, you know, again, the NBA it's different. They have addressed the concerns of the players. They have a plan in place to guarantee the best safety they can, and that's why you see Major League Baseball every year slip lower and lower and lower in attendance and in really the care factor.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody really cares about baseball until the playoffs.
Right.
Let's just
I
be
mean,
honest.
yeah, people start watching as a casual fan. We've said this before. As a casual fan, you start watching those races at the very end of the season, see who gets in, and then you really get into the postseason. But there are just so many games. I know
Yeah,
baseball is so steeped in tradition and how you're supposed to do things, and you have to do this, have to do that. But if you can't get out of that mindset in this situation, then you could face, a drastic change in your sport or complete annihilation of your sport. I don't
right.
have to say it that way. It'll just go away. But so get out of your mindset, change, move.
Yeah,
Basketball's dynamic. They've been doing that. The NBA has been willing to make changes and do other things. Not always, but this year is proving that they're way more adaptable when presented with this issue than baseball. That's for sure.
right. So again, baseball, we're on, or not baseball, NBA, we're on our way.
Yep.
Um, Baseball, I'm almost tempted just to throw it in the dumpster and
Yeah. Give them the
light it
kiss
on
of death,
fire
huh?
because that's what it is. It's a dumpster fire right now,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So if you're a baseball fan, don't send me any nasty grams. That's my opinion, and it's
Right.
our show, so I can voice my opinion.
That's right.
So, moving on now, and now we're gonna get more into not well. There when we get to the NFL, there's a little bit of COVID that I'll bring up. Not a huge
Yeah.
thing. But now, really, I want really for the remainder of the show, whether it's half an hour, 45 minutes, however long we talk, how it takes for us to cover this, how the protests are impacting sport. Um, when you look at this,
Yeah.
NASCAR has now banned the Confederate flag from being flown at their events.
Yep.
You've had one driver already come out and say, "This is my last season. This is ridiculous. It's a flag. I'm done. I'm not doing this." He's an owner of a team and a racer, and he's
Right.
saying, "I'm done." You have a huge, and everywhere I looked on social media, whenever there's that article, I don't really read the article because I know the basics of the article, so I don't care about that. I go and read people's comments. And oh my
Oh, right.
lord,
Yeah.
when NASCAR actually starts allowing fans in the stands, those stands are going to be empty. Because let's be honest, NASCAR formed in the South. It is more popular in the South.
It is.
Okay,
I don't think they're going to be empty. I don't think that's going to be the case. And they're
there are
going to allow fans, limited fans at Talladega and at Homestead. They
Well,
just said that.
and that's fine. But you are going to lose a big portion of your fans because there are a lot of even organizations that are upset with this ban of the flag. Whatever you decide, whatever side of it you're on with it.
Yeah.
My concern is this: we are starting to look at things, and unless you agree with everybody else, you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
Um, you're the history guy between the two of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
They're tearing down historical statues. You know,
Mhm.
banning the Confederate flag. All this stuff.
Yeah.
My concern is that you look at this stuff and where do we stop?
Well, that's a
Um,
really good point. That's the best question you could ask. Where do we stop? Because right now it's the right thing to do or the right thing to say, but tomorrow is it the right thing to do or say? Um, I mean, me personally, I'm fine with the Confederate flag being gone because my feeling about it is this. It's a flag that stood for an organization or a country, if you wanted to call it that. You might call it not a country because it never really existed as a country, depending on how you feel about it. Um, and that country was a slave holding nation. So that's kind of what it stands for. I guess that's why you look at it, you say, okay, let's get rid of it. Now, the statues and other things like that, well, those are of individual people, and I mean, I don't see Robert E. Lee as a person that you'd say, okay, he stood for X. Well, he's a historical figure. I mean, if you don't like him, you don't like him. But I don't think you have to take a statue of him down in some particular place or something like that. I think you're right. You're either with us or against us, no matter what side you're on. So if you're on this side of the issue, then you're obviously wrong. And if you're on this side of the issue, you're obviously right. And there can be no gray. There can be nothing in between. And I think that's horrible that we've gotten to that point. Um,
I agree.
Even more so than we have been in the past. It's terrible.
Yeah, and like, they're tearing down statues of Christopher Columbus. Uh, I mean, what
Yeah.
you know? Again, you know, I know there are certain texts out there that say, he, slaughtered, you know, um, the native people when he came here. And then
Yeah.
there's some that says he didn't. I don't know which one is right.
Yeah.
You have to read these texts and make a judgment.
And
But
decide for yourself, right?
right, but why tear down the statue? I just
Yeah.
that boggles my mind. But getting back to how this can impact sports
Right.
again, where do we stop? Again, this comes kind of
Yeah.
back to the whole mascot thing.
Right.
With like the
Yep.
Washington Redskins, the Atlanta
Right.
Braves, this and that.
How long has that been a debate? Especially
Right.
the Native American ones, the Redskins, the Braves, what have you. Yes. Yep.
And I can understand why people don't like the Confederate flag, but I
Yep.
will say this, and I don't have a problem with it. It is what it is.
Right. Sure.
NASCAR is an independent organization. They can ban it if they want to. People can
Yes.
be
Yep. As a
upset with it.
business. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They can be upset with it or they can agree with it. Whatever. It, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But again, I lost my train of thought here.
Well, I will tell
So
you this, Coach, and when you said before that you thought that they wouldn't get fans, I don't think it's going to be no fans, but I will agree that yes, NASCAR has deep Southern roots, and it would be one of those heavily impacted by that decision, good, bad, or
Right.
otherwise. People, there'll be a lot of people who will say, oh, they're just bowing to, certain pressures of the way the world
Right.
is today,
It,
and
it,
they're just going to
it,
be like, oh, they're just giving in, and I can't stand it, and I don't like it, and that's just the way it's always been in NASCAR. And you can say good or bad about that, but
right.
as a
It,
business, NASCAR is saying we're going to accept that.
right. And they may be, they may be like, you
Right.
know what? Yeah, this is going to upset a portion of our fan
A
base, but
good chunk of
just
them, yeah.
with all the pressures that are out there, we need to do this. Fine.
Right.
Now I remember what I was going to say though. Getting back to the
Okay.
flag, like you said,
Yep. Yep.
it was a symbol of, I'm going to say a group, because
Sure.
again, like you said, they weren't technically a country. They were trying to
Right. Depending on
succeed
your interpretation,
from
yeah.
from the union, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as time went on,
Mm-hmm.
for a group of people that has become not necessarily a symbol of the old Confederate Union that
Mm-hmm.
was, had a lot of slavery in it, but it's just become, we're from the South, and this is kind of
Yeah.
our Southern symbol. And
Right.
so again, it goes back to, the Washington Redskin logo. Well, there's a
Yeah.
group that says that's offensive to us, but there's another group that says no, we're not.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
my concern is that we're getting to a point where if a large group of people say this is offensive to me, it has to go away,
Right. Right.
or it gives credence to do something like tearing down a statue. So like,
Yeah.
and then,
And like you said, where does that end? I mean, I can look at something and I can say, well, you get rid of this flag. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine. I think maybe it's a good thing they did, but like you said, where does it end? Where do you stop? Where do all of a sudden people say, well, the Eagles are offensive to me. I don't like Eagles. They've always been horrible. We need to get rid of the Eagles. I mean, where does it, and it sounds ridiculous, but those kind of
uh,
things start to manifest and you just don't know. I mean, it
well,
can start get to that point.
and you look at it like this, and I think we were still in college when this came up. FEMA
Yeah.
was trying to force the Packers to change their name
Right.
because their name came from a meat packaging company. I mean,
Right. Right.
that's my concern with this, is that
Yes.
where
Yep.
where does the line get drawn? I
Yeah.
understand the reason for it,
Right.
and like I said, NASCAR wants to do it, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
It, but I am concerned with where we're going
Yeah.
and where the line gets drawn with everything. So we'll see. But now, like, you look at some states, they have part of the Confederate flag or those parts of that symbol in
They
their state
do.
flags.
Yes. Yes, they
And there's
do.
groups
Yep.
that are trying to force states to change their state flag that they've had for hundreds of years.
Right. And I would say, if those flags, to me, if those flags existed before the Confederacy existed, which a lot of them did, because those states
Mm-hmm.
became states before that existed.
Right,
um,
exactly.
then you can't look at their flag, and I'm sure their flags, some of them are original to the state. But
Right.
then you can't really say, "Hey, state, you should change that because it looks like this flag that came after you designed your original flag." That's just stupid to me. Like you said, where does the line be drawn? Where is it going to be drawn?
Because here's where I think why we're really starting to cross the line.
Yeah.
We I read this article this afternoon. Live PD canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So the show Live PD canceled. There's now a group out there that wants Nickelodeon to cancel Paw Patrol.
Oh my God.
I mean,
You've
seriously.
got to be kidding me.
No, no, go
Uh,
after the show.
no, okay, no, I
Google
believe you.
cancel
Yeah.
Paw Patrol. It's out
Oh,
there.
wow.
So anything that resembles law enforcement,
Dog police brutality. I mean,
get
come
rid
on.
of. Get rid of it.
Oh,
I mean, again, I am concerned we're really starting to cross the line with some of this stuff.
yeah.
You know, I have a German Shepherd. Well, when you hear, oh, a dog's a German Shepherd, what's the first thought comes to mind? It's a cop dog.
Right.
What are they going to ban German Shepherds? I mean,
Wow, you
seriously.
know, I wasn't gonna wait. I had to look. It seriously is out there. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I told you.
You've got to be kidding me.
This is where I think we're starting to cross the line. And like I said, I'm not a big, you know, proponent or against that what NASCAR did. Again, it's their choice. They feel what they have to do is best
Yeah.
for their organization.
Right.
But don't be surprised that people start pushing back on some of this stuff because
Right.
it's starting to get to that point
Well,
where
and I think
people
part of the problem is, and this is where, all this stuff bleeds over into sports, and we've been talking about the kneeling and other things like that, and now we're talking about flags. So it bleeds over into sports. The problem is that people start to politicize all of this stuff, and they take it and they
mm-hmm,
say, well, because you feel this way, you must be on the right, or because you feel this way, you must be on the left. And I think that is just total and complete crap. I
right,
can't feel a certain way about something without being stuck into a category. I think that's garbage. And so when it comes to sports, I know sports, it's interwoven with society and how we look at things, but I want to enjoy sports without having to worry about all that other stuff too much. And that's part of the issue I see with this type of thing is flag and everything else. It starts bleeding over into all other parts of society. People watch sports for a lot of reasons, but one of them, and one of the big ones, is they like the escape. They want to watch
right,
sports to enjoy it. They don't want to think about protests or right or left wing or whatever. They want to enjoy a sport.
right,
That's what they
exactly.
want, you know?
And that's the thing. I think right now, and I'm fine. Where if you're a professional athlete, you want to come out and say, "I'm against this. I'm for this."
Yeah.
That's fine. But when
Sure.
you,
It's your
but
opinion.
when you are on that competitive field or court or whatever, people want to forget their their quote unquote regular life for a few hours. You know, that's what it's there for. It's for entertainment.
Yeah.
It's to give us a break from reality a little
Right.
bit, not to
Yeah.
continue to live it.
Right.
And that leads us into the NFL.
Sure.
Roger Goodell came out and has apologized for the NFL's initial stance on kneeling during the anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, I Roger Goodell, whether people want to like him, hate him, or not, is a very influential and powerful person in the world. He is
He
the
is. Yes, he
commissioner
is. Yep.
of the National Football League.
Right.
I would have been fine if he would have came out and said, you know what, back 2000, whatever it was, 16, 17, whatever it was,
Yeah.
we came out and we said this, and this is why we said it. But with reevaluating everything, we're changing our stance on this. I would have been fine.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The minute you now apologize for a past decision,
Right.
I start to have a problem with it because you're
Mm-hmm.
saying we've been wrong this entire time. You
Exactly.
you
Yep.
you made a mistake.
Right.
in your mind. That's fine, but just say, I don't know why we have to apologize for everything. Why? Why
Yeah,
does everything need an apology?
right.
You changed your stance. Guess what? People change their stances and stuff all the time.
I know. That's ridiculous. Why do you have to apologize for all these things? I mean, it's not like you walked into a building and you murdered 50 people and then you're like, "Oh man, okay, now I feel sorry about that." Well, that requires more than sorry. But Roger Goodell coming out and yeah, and that's an extreme example, but
Right.
Roger Goodell coming out and saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry about this from 5 years ago or whatever." Why? You made a decision at the time. You thought it was right based on the information you had and how you felt about it at the time and everything. You don't have to apologize for it. You don't have to go and profusely beg for people's forgiveness because it wasn't that horrible. Now, I mean, some people are going to say, well, it was because it stood for this, and I can't believe that, and it was an abomination, but it really wasn't.
Right.
Because
And that's
him saying that wasn't causing people to die. I don't think is Roger
right.
Goodell doesn't have that power.
And I've always kind of been, kneeling isn't the worst thing. You
Right.
know, I kind of was like, yeah, whatever. We're kind of the NFL's response was blowing that out of proportion
Yeah.
a little bit, but again, just change your stance on it.
Yeah.
Don't
Yep.
go back and apologize
Right.
because now that leads us into this next part of this. And I can't stand this show. I just can't.
Okay.
Whenever I see video clips of it, I have to scroll through it because I just can't. I've tried watching parts of it just because of the content. I can't. The View,
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. That's
Colin
not my favorite
Kaepernick.
show either.
Yeah, Colin Kaepernick deserves a
Yeah.
Nobel Prize, and
For what?
well, I'm guessing social justice, and should get back pay from the NFL.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me?
And no.
And again, this is why the dominoes fall. You apologize.
Right.
You said now we were wrong.
Right. And you brought that up and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one of the first things I saw was somebody came out right away. I don't remember who offhand, but somebody came out right away and said, "Well, Goodell's apology didn't include Colin Kaepernick." Why does he need to name him specifically? Because he was the first one. I mean, we're spending all this time talking about a guy who maybe he's a great human being. I don't know him
Yeah,
personally, so I can't say that for sure. But he's not playing football. We talk about sports because we talk about people who are playing, and yes, we talk about ex players, but the reason he's not playing anymore isn't because he's African American, isn't because he was kneeling. It's because he's not that good. People
right.
don't play when they're not that good. That's why they don't play. I mean, you see, this is a perfect example, okay? There's tons of guys all the time who are in trouble with the law, right? There's always guys who have legal problems. Well, if a guy has legal problems and he's still playing football, what does that tell you? It means he can still play and teams are willing to put up with all the other garbage because he can play football. If Colin Kaepernick was that good, I honestly believe that somebody would have went out there and said, "Hey, become our backup, become our starter, whatever." I mean, yeah, there may be a couple teams out there who stayed away from him because they didn't want the publicity, but you can't tell me that there wouldn't be a team that would take a shot at a guy like him and love the publicity if he could be a viable quarterback.
Right. And again, when we were texting earlier,
Yeah.
there are people out there that says somebody has to sign Kaepernick now. Why?
Why?
If he's not good, then no. He
Just to give a
doesn't
guy
need
a
to be
free
signed.
paycheck? I mean,
Um, and I said it. Okay, fine.
yeah,
If you want to force the NFL to sign Kaepernick,
right.
this is why I'd say, okay, we control what team he goes to.
Sure.
I'm gonna go find. Like I said it, the Jacksonville
The
Jaguars right now.
Jags. Yep. Put him on the
Play,
Jags. Yeah.
go play down there.
Right.
He's not gonna be happy because he's gonna be getting pummeled every day
Yeah.
because the Jaguars aren't very good.
Right.
I mean, when a team like the Jaguars won't even take a shot at him. Last
Yeah.
year after Andrew Luck retired, you'd think, okay, if
Yeah.
Kaepernick was even a decent quarterback, Indianapolis would at least brought him in for a workout. They
Sure.
didn't. It's just
Yep.
one of those things where if he could still play the game and be good at it,
Right.
he'd be on a roster.
He would be on a roster.
Now,
I really think that some people believe that because of what he did and his political views and everything, that no team would touch him or he got blacklisted or whatever the case may be. I just don't buy that, because guys get on teams even after they do some pretty terrible stuff. I mean, look at Antonio Brown. Now, obviously, not a social activist, right? But, he goes from one team and he's on the Raiders after being in Pittsburgh, and he gets out of Pittsburgh because of all the crap that he pulls. He goes to the Raiders and he pulls a whole bunch of other crap, which is so obvious and so awful. And you find out about all these lawsuits and other things later, but a team still went out and signed him. Now, granted, he didn't last there, but he was still there, and they still signed him. Like, if he were really going to be any good, then Kaepernick would have been signed by somebody. I have to believe that a team would have taken a shot at him.
Well, exactly. Because you just look at history.
Yeah.
Ray Lewis, one of the best linebackers in NFL history.
Yeah.
Accused of murdering somebody.
Right.
He didn't get cut.
No, because he could play football.
Right. Mark Chimura sexually assaulted a teenager.
Right.
Packers didn't cut him.
Nope.
I
mean,
Michael Irvin with his drug issues.
Right.
Cowboys didn't cut him. Why? Nope. They could play the game at a high level.
Right.
People look at it, and especially since they had this workout, they're like, oh, look at his arm strength. You can take any strong arm guy that knows kind of how to play quarterback, put him out there in a t-shirt and shorts, no pressure, have guys running routes, and he can be pretty darn accurate with the football.
Sure.
That's
or just chuck it pretty far.
Right. That is not a great assessment if he's a good quarterback.
No, not at all.
You look after that Super Bowl run.
Right.
Teams now had film on him.
Yeah.
And after that, he was nothing.
Right. His skills, or lack thereof, everything became way more readily apparent. He went downhill in a complete hurry. And his career was cut short due to his lack of ability to be able to change and adapt to the NFL as teams adapted to him. It was completely obvious that he just, it wasn't going to happen any longer.
Right.
I mean, he and Russell Wilson and Robert Griffin III were all guys, around that time that had come out, and everybody said, oh, this is a revolution. They're running quarterback and blah, 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 blah. Well, only one of those guys is starting as a quarterback in the league now. So, I mean, obviously that wasn't the case. And Kaepernick, he's not even in the league. Robert Griffin III is at least still in the league. Russell Wilson had to change his style. Robert Griffin III had to learn his role. he's just he if he were any good, he'd be playing football. People, he'd
Right.
be a backup somewhere right now if he were still a viable backup.
Right. Exactly.
I
Hey,
I don't
Chillwell.
know.
I didn't see Chillwell come into the broadcast. But yeah, exactly. If Kaepernick could still play, he would. So people
Yeah,
coming out and saying, "Oh, because now the NFL's saying that they were wrong," and blaming the
it
NFL for
opens the
him
door,
for
right?
him not being in the league, that they now somebody has to sign him. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He is not a quarterback for the NFL.
It's
You know,
and it's not a charity organization. It's not like,
right?
hey, we have to sign somebody to make them feel better, or because we feel sorry for them, or it's a business. I mean, they make business decisions, and they look for the best talent. So
Exactly.
they're not just going to sign somebody because you want to be a social activist. I don't understand that mentality. There's a time and a place for that, and I think you have to be understood. But yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, so that floored me. Yeah, we are live.
Yeah.
Chill, well, we are live. We've been going for about an hour. We're coming towards the end of the show. We've covered quite a few topics. Um, so yeah, well, it the reason for it is because of everything that's coming out. Um, uh, you know, so
Yeah.
um, we had to address it.
We had to at least
Um,
address it and talk about it. Yeah. So
I don't know about
I
that, to be honest.
don't know.
I don't know. We'll agree to disagree on that one. I think part of it is he thinks he's better than what he is. He's worth like top tier money. He's not. Somebody,
Right.
um, thank you. Uh,
The candid.
um,
Yeah.
Candid Mommy, thank you. We try to make everything we try to do comes from a common sense kind of standpoint.
Right.
You know, I will throw out something kind of off the wall here at the end of the show, but most of it's common sense. But again, I think with Kaepernick, I think he would be on a roster if he would be willing to take backup money. I don't think he's willing to do that. I think he
Right.
thinks he's still one of the best in the league, and he's
Well, and
not.
how long has he been out? I mean, you can't just walk in and waltz into the league and
It'll
say
be
I'm a
3 years.
starter.
It'll be
You
3 years.
it doesn't work that way. So
Right, and
yeah.
the Canadian Football League was interested in him. He didn't want to go there, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, part of he has to take some of the blame himself. Um,
Right.
you know, I said that's what I think. I don't, that's why part of everything that you know, that I look at. That's my part of my opinion on it. My
Mm-hmm.
overall opinion is he's just not as good as people as he thinks he is, and
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you know, people looked at his film from San Francisco and basically has said his skill set doesn't mesh with our team because you look at um, yeah, exactly. If it wasn't, I get what you're saying, Chibble. If it wasn't about the money, he would. Yes, exactly. If it wasn't about money, he would have taken backup money, earned his spot, maybe become a starter again, and then play well and get your money. That's
Right.
kind of how the league works.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think he's the same as Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a athletic
Oh, yeah.
freak.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
He makes better decisions with the football than Kaepernick did.
Right.
I mean, Kaepernick, you could get into Kaepernick's head, and you saw this when he got
Right.
blitzed. He would get hit, and then the next 2, 3 passes, he'd just run around for his life and just chuck the ball. And you can't
Right.
tell me you lose the Super Bowl and then the next year your team gets that bad.
Right.
Uh,
It's so much so that you're changing quarterbacks, or you're doing different things with your team because you have to compensate for a guy who is either completely figured out by opposing defenses or just is not making good decisions on the football field. I mean, so much of playing quarterback is making decisions in a split second. He wasn't doing that, not in the same way he was before, and the offense had to change, and it just wasn't good.
well, and I agree. Lamar has great coaches, but you had, Lamar Jackson has John Harbaugh. At the time, there was another Harbaugh in San Francisco.
That's
Who's
right. I mean,
so
and a lot of people think he was a pretty good coach. I don't know.
yeah,
That's a whole other debate
right.
about
It,
whether
it,
he's a great coach, whatever, in the NFL. But
well, and I think Harbaugh's a good coach. I think he's a horrible
yeah,
recruiter. I
yeah,
I don't think
right,
he recruits very well. But we'll get into college football later on down the road. Um,
right.
right. Oh yeah.
No,
I
I
don't
agree.
think.
Yeah, John
Yeah.
Harbaugh's better
Yeah.
coach. Yeah,
John Harbaugh is a better coach than his brother. Yeah.
yeah.
That's not a. That's not
So
even a
I think let's go for your off the wall comment here, because
well.
we've probably talked about Cap too much,
Well.
in
Well.
my
There's one
opinion.
more.
I mean, we talked about him was important. We need to talk about Goodell, but what's your off the
Well,
wall comment here?
one more thing with the NFL, and it has to do with the
Okay.
COVID. And it's funny. It was Coach Harbaugh came out, and the NFL has come out with the guidelines for their return to practices and stuff. They have to
Yeah.
maintain social distancing in all meetings, locker rooms, things like that. So you can't have guys sitting in the next to each other in the locker room.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, they're having the
I mean,
spacing things out. Yeah.
it's kind of. I understand why they're saying it, but
Right.
you have to when you do these things, you have to look at it from a perspective of the teams, and logistically, you can't
Right.
do it. You just can't
No.
do it.
No,
You
I
know,
don't get it either. You're
you
right,
know,
Chill. I don't think it makes any sense. I don't understand.
that's kind of like
Like, what is somebody gonna do? Go in there and completely reconfigure the entire locker room?
right.
Um,
Well, and
yeah,
we talked about this when they came out with the high school regulations that the ball
right.
had to be sanitized before it could be touched by another player.
Yeah,
You can't. It doesn't matter what sport it is. You can't do that. If you're touch the ball with your hands, you
yeah.
can't sanitize it before it goes to the next player. It does.
I want. You know what, Coach? I want to see this in basketball. I want to
Oh,
see
gee,
the ref out there sanitizing the basketball every single time before
it gets
somebody else
passed.
touches it. I gotta see it. It
So
has to happen.
again, like the comment earlier, common sense, people, and I think
Right.
that's
It's just
part of the
stupid.
part. I think it's part of the issue we have in just society in general. Is we don't use common
Yeah.
sense with a lot of
Yeah. I
stuff.
mean, come on.
So my off the wall comment and thought here. Okay, with everything
Mm-hmm.
going on, with all the protesting and things like that, I'm fine. We've talked about this. I'm fine with it. Peaceful protesting, fine. Have an
Right.
issue
That's your
with
right to do. Yep.
burning businesses down, looting businesses, obviously.
Yeah.
Have a problem with that. But we touched on this a little bit earlier.
Yep.
We have COVID going on as well, and
Right.
when you're protesting, you're obviously not social distancing, right?
No, I
So,
would say that's pretty fair to say.
so
Yes.
this could be a very positive thing for sport. And this is why.
Mm-hmm.
If through all these protests, we do not see a huge spike. There's going to be a spike of COVID cases,
Sure.
but if we don't see a huge spike in COVID cases in the areas where there's these huge protests,
Right.
stadiums are being packed because
Yeah.
the leagues are going to be like, there's thousands of people out in the streets protesting,
Yeah.
and we're not transmitting COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So this could turn out to be a very good thing, especially for the NFL, because they can, well, at least teams with outdoor stadiums, they can say,
Right.
we have open air stadium.
Right. I don't know if that's going to be the case as to whether or not there's actually not going to be a lot of cases or not. But if there's not, then yes, I could see a lot of people being a lot more bold about saying, "Hey, I don't have a problem going to a sporting event because I feel safer about it." Whether that's right
right.
or wrong, I mean, they'll feel that way. Yeah, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that you're people are gonna correlate the two.
Yeah, they
Like
will.
we
Yeah,
said, what happens in society and sport links together.
right.
You're
For
gonna
sure. Yep.
you're definitely gonna see people look at this when they make a determination whether to go to a major sporting event. Because
Yeah.
if you're in New York and you went protesting and you didn't get COVID, and now you have a chance to go to a Giants game, even though the Giants are going to be really bad.
They are, but maybe you want to go to a football game. Yep.
You're probably going to say, "Okay, I was just out in the street for days on end, around thousands of individuals, and didn't get it. I'm only going to
Right.
be in the stadium for 3 hours, and it's going to be a lot more sanitary." Because
Yeah.
they're going to do the temperature checks, they're going to do all the sanitizing, they're going to do all that stuff. They
Right.
aren't doing that out at the protests,
Not the last time I checked. It's kind of like the
right?
pass the basketball thing. Hey,
Right.
wait, let me clean off your Molotov cocktail before you pass it to somebody else to throw it.
Right.
I mean, it's
Exactly.
not
Exactly.
happening. Yeah.
So again, I'm just saying that I feel that, and it's going to take a while because we have to wait to see, COVID case numbers and see if
Yeah.
where the statistics are. But if it comes
Right.
out that it's pretty negligible,
Yeah.
that's a good thing for sport. It's a
Yeah.
really good
I
thing.
mean, I agree. It may not make the most sense
Right.
practically. I mean, it might not correlate, and there may be a big jump in cases if people go back to sporting events. But you are right. A lot of people will look at it that way and say, "Yeah, this is what happened. Look at all these people; they didn't get sick. I'm going to go to this sporting event."
Right.
And the NFL is going to look at those things, I'm sure.
Oh, exactly. When they're looking at,
Yeah.
because I'll tell you right now, the NFL, there's no way they're thinking right now we're playing games without fans.
Yeah.
They're not thinking that. They're thinking,
Right.
how can we get fans into the stadiums?
Yeah.
And if the numbers show that they can safely do it,
They'll do it in a heartbeat. Of course they will.
right? They're gonna
Yeah.
say, forget the CDC, forget all this stuff. We had thousands of people all over the country protesting with
Mm-hmm.
very minimal increase in COVID cases, if that's what happens.
Yep. Well, I think
Why
this goes
can't
back to something you and I talked about before, where you know uh, these are private organizations, and if the NFL does this, the only way that they can be stopped is essentially that the government has to shut them down completely, but they'd have to do it forcibly. If the NFL says, okay, we're going to have a game, we're going to allow fans, and all these people show up and they go to the game, the government ordering them to do it, I don't think would be enough because the NFL would probably fight that in court. I think they'd have to just show up and basically put a cordon around the stadium and say, nope, you can't come in, it's closed.
well
And
again
that's just a giant mess waiting to happen if that were to be the case.
Right. And this goes back to one of my early comments that Roger Goodell is one of the most powerful people in the nation.
Yeah.
Is that you can? I'll tell you right now. New York in New Jersey had some of the strictest stay-at-home orders in the country, besides Michigan, and they weren't even close to reopening stuff. And
Hmm.
they are. Then all of a sudden they came out and said we're going to allow our professional sport teams back into their facilities.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't. You you don't think Cuomo got a call from Roger Goodell and said, um, "You need to come out and publicly say that these people can be there."
Yeah. He's
I
got
mean,
he has some influence. I mean, there's no question about that.
you
I mean,
know,
he's not.
people aren't stupid. They understand professional sports
Yeah.
drive a lot of your revenue in your cities.
Oh yeah, for sure they do.
And especially right now, what do you need? You need revenue,
Yeah.
especially in places like New York,
Right.
New York, LA,
There's a lot of cities that need that right now, hands down.
Chicago. That
Yeah.
they need revenue horribly bad. Um, so I think if Roger Goodell said, you know what, we're not putting restrictions on teams as long as they do X, Y, and Z, and this is why, I think
Hmm.
people are just gonna be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
um, that's my off-ball thing. Again, I told you I could be totally off base with this, and I'm the type of person that if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Oh,
Whatever.
but 3 years from now, I expect you to apologize for it when you've changed your stance on it.
No,
That's
I
what I
will.
want from you.
I will not apologize for it. I will say, yes, that was
Yeah.
my comment, and this is why I made the comment. I will not go back and apologize for any comments I made. I will give you my rationale behind the comment,
I want a formal
but
apology,
I will
and
not apologize.
I
It
expect
opens.
you to put me on your roster when that happens. I
I'll
want
make you.
all of that.
I'll just make you the PR person for Smack Talk.
That's fine.
You can issue the public apologies.
That's great.
As I'm sitting back here just chuckling at you.
Yes.
But
Nice.
anyways, um, that's what I have for tonight, Lone Wolf. I'm not sure if I miss anything or if you saw something out there that you feel we should cover. Um, you know,
No, there really wasn't anything else sports wise. I think what I would say is it's encouraging to me to see some of these sports back because they've looked at it and they said we have to adapt to the current circumstances, and they've done that. Um, I'm not a huge fan of some of the sports that are back as a just as a personal thing,
right.
but I like to see that those sports are back, and it gives something for people to be able to watch, to focus on, to get into again, to talk about, because I mean, you can only debate about prior years and other things that have gone on for
Right.
so long.
We
We want current sports.
we only can only build rosters and do power rankings so many times.
Right.
I mean
You
we
know,
can't go back and do NFL power rankings again. They haven't played a game.
right. Right.
So
Yeah. We're not going to sit and debate about, hey, this team, that team, all this other stuff. We want current sports. So, like I said, I'm glad that, some of the sports we talked about, golf, MMA, NASCAR, these sports are current, they're live, they're having events right now. So I'm looking forward to getting some of the other sports back and seeing what they're going to look like in this new environment.
yeah, and I don't have the calendar in front of me, but I believe the next couple weeks we'll start seeing some training camps possibly opening up for the
Yeah.
NFL teams. Um,
Yep.
you know, and hopefully, can I really just think it's getting to that point where, again, a lot of the stuff that's going on in society is gonna drive how
Right.
quickly stuff comes back now, because I think there's a large portion of the country that's looking at it and be like, and are looking at it and say, okay, we're supposed to be, being careful with where we are, who we're around, what we're doing, but yet there's these protests which are justified.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm gonna keep clarifying that, because some people, they'll hear one thing and say we're against it. I am not against protesting. Now there are a few things that I
Right.
am, but I'm not going to get into that. Um,
Yep. Not in this show.
right. Um, but they see that and they're going to be like, you know what? Forget this. We're going back to life. We're going to get
Yeah.
back to this. And if you're not making a big because there, and I didn't fact check this. I didn't have time, but
Sure.
there was a slide on. I get my news feed and I go through it, and I mean, to be honest, everybody, I'm a teacher. I'm on summer break. I don't have much to do except I'm packing because I'm moving, and
Right.
I read news. And there was, I don't remember who put it out, but it was, it was major health personnel for the whole COVID thing, and they said, restrict your your group to 12 unless you're protesting. What?
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. You know
Yeah,
what?
that doesn't even make sense. I
So
don't I don't
so,
know
so
why that
let
would
me
even make
get
sense.
let me get my high school football team together, both
Right.
with coaches, about 60 of us. And when
And
somebody
go
comes out and
protest and
says
you'd be
you
fine.
can't practice, we're like, we're not practicing, we're protesting.
Right. All of
I
a sudden that's okay. Yeah.
I mean that's the kind of stuff when, and again, I didn't fact check it, so I'm just saying that's something
Who
that came
knows
up
who
on.
yeah, who actually came up. Yeah.
But if that's true, you're gonna see people saying, "Forget it." But
Yeah.
yeah, and
Right,
kind of
wrong, or indifferent. Yeah, I
right.
think once these sporting events come out, if here's the bottom line, and I think this is really what it is. If sports come back out and they say the major sports come back out and allow fans, because a lot of the sports we talked about that are out have not allowed fans. And they say fans are allowed, you have people there. That's
Oh,
the bottom line.
absolutely,
You
absolutely.
open it up and you say we'll allow fans, people will be there.
Tell you right now, Lone Wolf.
Yeah,
If NFL games allow fans, you're gonna be able to go see the Packers play for a really cheap price.
yeah. I think you get some discounts. I agree.
Because you'll have season
Yeah,
ticket holders that they're going to give up their season tickets, but they
sure.
don't want to go to the game. So you can just be like,
Right,
I'll give you $50 for that pair of tickets, because it's either that or you
right.
go to the stadium.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you
No, I
what,
agree. I think you'll see that.
we should look. I bet you we could get a steal for tickets when the Packers come play the Vikings.
Right.
Just saying.
Probably.
Just,
Yeah,
just saying. Just saying. We might be able to get a steal for those. Um, part of it is I don't think the Vikings are going to be very good
right.
this year. Others, with the stuff going on, I don't think a lot of people from outside of the Minneapolis area are going to venture into Minneapolis,
Yeah.
um, with some of the stuff
Not
that's
right
going on
now.
right
Yeah.
now. And it's not even the protesting and stuff now. Now they're trying to abolish the police department, and all that
Yeah, the
stuff.
whole thing has been going kind of nuts over there. So, yeah.
So, but again, we actually had stuff to talk about that's current.
Yeah.
Even though it's not
Encouraging.
games,
Right.
hopefully after the 4th of July, we will actually be able to talk about games.
I think once basketball gets underway, we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about right there. And I think
So,
that'll
so
be really
yeah,
good.
because after the 4th, you got NBA start back up. You got
Right.
NFL teams reporting for camp. You got Major League that's going to be sitting on their couches wishing that they were playing.
Yep.
but,
Exactly.
but so everybody stick with us for a couple more weeks. Our rambling on will cease. I mean, unfortunately, we started this show at the beginning of the year,
Right.
in January, and we were going along really good, and then COVID hit. So we're just like everything
Just
else, where it's
just
like,
like everybody else, it disrupted everything that we wanted to do,
so
unfortunately.
what are we
So
going to
here
talk
we
about
are,
this
but
week? So
yep.
we do appreciate everybody that comes in and supports us. Everybody
Yep. Every
that listens.
comment, whether you agree with us or you don't agree with
Right.
us, doesn't matter. I mean, come on in. We
You know,
appreciate the listen.
again, we have no problem with what other people's opinions are and stuff. That's a great thing about this country. You can have your own opinion on stuff. You know,
Right.
I think we're respectful to other people's opinions. I don't think we've ever come on and said this person's absolutely wrong, this or
Right.
that. Never said that. Except maybe the View.
Right. Well, now
But
come on. You just said, yeah, yeah.
well, no, they're wrong.
I know what you're saying. I
Especially on
know.
the Colin Kaepernick thing.
Right.
They're
Anyway.
wrong.
Yeah.
Anyways, want to thank everybody again. Stay safe, whether it's from COVID or if you're going out and protesting. Be safe. Be careful. Look out for
Right.
each other. Again,
Take
thank
care of
you
yourself. Yep.
for listening live, or if you're listening to this recorded. Again, thank you, and we will talk to everybody next week. Thank you.
Next
Have a
week.
good night.
Night.